Welcome to episode 2 of the Daniel Dargan podcast. It is good to have you here, my friend. We are back with better audio, a Let's Go espresso, obviously, and we got the prison get up on. If you're listening, I've got the grey joggers on. I look like I'm doing a stint in Alcatraz, and I don't know, what would I go down for? What do you think I'd go down for if I was going to juvie? Not juvie, prison. Can you go away for being too handsome asking for a mate? Anyway, not the point. Thank you for anyone that listened to the first episode. I'm actually baffled that people sat down and listened to me talk shite for an hour. So if you did, thank you. It means the world. Episode 2, we're going to let it up. 7 days in the mountains with the Iceman. Who is the Iceman? What is this expedition that I'm doing? So in 25 days' time, I'm embarking on a journey to Poland with 5 of me amigos to take on some pretty crazy challenges. And I'm going to take you through in this episode, who is Wim Hof? What is the expedition? Why am I doing it? Why am I putting myself through this? And bear in mind, some people haven't came back from this expedition before. I'm going to take you through why I actually got into all this cold water malarkey in the first place, how it helped my life, my business, how I ended up on a gay porn website, and much more, my friend. So let's get into it. I think it's important. Well, I'll give you a bit about the expedition first, why I'm actually doing it. So a couple of years ago, let's throw back to 2020. Didn't really know what I was doing. Was a bit lost in life. Had came through a lot. And I was trying to find myself, shall we say. And I had this friend, right? Lloyd, if you're listening, shout out, my man. He was running into the sea. Bear in mind, this was February 2020. It was cold. Lloyd, his mum, his auntie, running into the sea. And it was freezing. I couldn't get over it. And anybody that mentioned cold water, I was a man that loved the heat. Don't get me near that shit. And he kept banging on about it. Come on, Daniel, we'll go for a dip. We'll go for a sea dip. And I said, mate, not a chance. I'd rather get hit by a bus. One day he got me in and I said, you know what? I'm going to shut you up. I'm going to go. And I went with him, packed my kit. We went down to Ballygally. And for anybody doesn't live in Northern Ireland, Ballygally is on the east coast of Northern Ireland. I'm saying that as if it's like a tropical island. I'm saying that as if it's like Miami. It's on the east coast of Northern Ireland. Honestly, it's probably one of the most beautiful spots that I know in the country. And yeah, we ran up my very first sea dip almost 4 years ago, which is crazy to say. It was raining, it was windy, and I was shitting my pants. I was really nervous, of course. I was like, am I going to die? Am I going to have a heart attack? It's so cold. I'm not used to this. And we leathered it. I ran straight in, and for the first time, because through my party days, drinking, of course you get that feeling when you're drinking, when you're partying. That's the first time since then that I'd had a high, and it was incredible. It was like something I hadn't felt before from nature. And this sounds so woo-woo, it does, but like if I wasn't who I am now, as in having done all this cold water, I would think, mate, you're nuts, you're a virgin, you need a good ride. But it was unbelievable. And I said to Lloyd, I was like, can we go back tomorrow? I want to go back again. And I just became obsessed with it. And it was my vice. That was the one thing, a healthy vice, one thing that was able to take my mind off the stresses or the worries of life. And I just fell in love with it. And I brought my friends, I brought more people. And I used to drive my mum's people carrier at the time. It was like an 8-seater. It was like an old 8-seater Chrysler. And I used to do the rounds, pick them all up, and we would head down to Ballygally. And one thing that I would say to anybody that's outside looking in when it comes to cold water, trying anything in life, is try it to see the benefits for yourself before wanting the benefits first for actually trying it. It's one of those things you need to try to experience yourself before writing it off. And you need to give it a good go. Right, like no, I used to write everything off. I want to give something a good try before I write it off. So trust me. But that was the first time I'd done it, and I kept going back, and I fell in love with it. And when I started coaching a year later, it was almost like an initiation that I brought my clients to do a cold dip. And I'll never forget this one time. I thought this guy was gonna die on my watch. So Fergie, Jack, if you're listening, I took him down for the sea dip one day, never been before, and it was one of the worst days in Ireland that I've seen. It was like a blizzard. Hailstones, it was windy, it was wild. And we firmed it, so head off, sprinting straight into the water. Bear in mind, I've been doing this for a year. I was used to it. And I said, Jack, we'll go in, we'll do a minute or two and see how we get on. I probably said like 5 minutes at a time, irresponsibly. Nice one, Daniel. Do you care? Do you care? And we ran in. And after a while, like I was like, bro, this guy's gonna die. I turned around to him and I was like, all good, mate. He just looked at me. He didn't say anything. I was like, this man's soul has left his body. I'm gonna have to bring this man back to his mother and say he died on my watch. This is for the greater good, trying to get this man in great shape, dialed mentally, and I've killed him. And I was like, Fergie, you alright, bro? Are you okay? And he just looked at me, and I was like, yeah, time to get out. But mate, after a while, once he came round, he was like, here, I'm going to go back in. I firmed it, done another 30 seconds, done another minute. So Fergie, shout out, my man. But honestly, that was one of the worst. I honestly thought he was going to die on my watch, but you always come out feeling incredible. And that's where the journey really started. Alongside the coaching, I started posting on social media about it, and it was different, I suppose, at the time. So many people are doing it now, but like I wasn't the only one doing cold dips, but posting about it and talking about it, talking about mindset, talking about my journey while I was in the water. I believed it was different at the time, and that was a big part of how the social media actually grew for me. But we'll get into that. I think it's important to give you a bit of context on the Wim Hof Expedition and who is Wim Hof first, and we'll get to that, like why I actually pushed that as part of my content that really helped the business and really helped my life through my self-development journey. So in 25 days we're going to Wim Hof. A couple of months ago, me and my mates went for a dip. We had a coffee afterwards, and we're like, "Oh yeah, we'll book this expedition." You know, when you're having a few drinks with your mates, and you're like, "Oh, we'll do it," and then you wake up the next morning, you're like, "Oh my god, what have we done?" That was exactly that. One of our friends, he'd done it last year, Karen, and it sounded incredible. And I've been doing this dipping for 3-4 years now, and that's like the pinnacle. I was like, this is the Catalina wine mixer of sea dips. Like this is this is final boss sea dip, so it has to be done to tick it off to get the t-shirt. So we booked it the next morning. One of my mates, he messaged me. He's like, "Oh my god, like what have we done? I'm shitting myself." But we firmed it and we've locked it in. And the reason why I'm doing it, I want to test myself. I want to see what I'm truly capable of. I want to look back in 80 years' time and know that I've stretched what I actually thought I was capable of doing. I want to know that I really pushed my boundaries as a young man and seen what I had in the locker. And I want you to do, that's what I want you to do as well. I want you to do things that you're going to look back and smile on, look back and be like, wow, geez, you were crazy back then. I want you to look back and be really proud of the life that you've lived, because in years gone by, I was living the same life week in, week out, month to month, year to year, and like that wasn't real. I wasn't really living. And again, a lot of people do live a life like that. 75 years and they haven't ever lived. And I don't want to regret on my deathbed. So that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm taking on different challenges. That's why I went to Bali in November. I hemmed and hawed about it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to look back and smile about this. So anytime you're indecisive of whether to make a decision or not, always go with the decision that brings the most opportunity. Always go with the decision that you're going to be able to look back and smile on in 80 years' time. Think of yourself in the rocking chair. What would that version of you do? What advice would he give right now? So we booked it, we firmed it, and it's 25 days out now. I've been practicing, I've been in the bath every single day. When I say the bath, it's a bin. It's a council bin. And I get loads of people reaching out, being like, here, mate, we'll send you a proper Lumi, mate. We'll send you a proper ice pod. I'm like, mate, there's no character in that. Give me the council bin, baby. So when we go to this expedition, we're going to be taking on a series of challenges. It's going to be jumping off cliffs. It's like an 8-meter jump off this cliff into an ice lake. We're going to be doing 10, 12, 15 minutes in these frozen lakes where we have to break the ice and then get in. It's going to be tough. Then we do a 5-hour hike to the top of the summit in Karpacz, Poland. That's going to be insane. That's going to be something that's really going to test your character. And bear in mind, this isn't just a hike. This is a hike where you're only wearing your shorts. You're only in shorts and boots. And you guessed it, my friend, we're going in the Calvins, team boxers. But there's people like one of our friends, Karen, she went last year and she said she rocked up. She was one of the only women there. And she said she panicked when she got to the airport. She seen all these big burly men and she thought, what have I got myself into? And she said when they were doing the hike, she thought she was going to die. Whilst they were climbing, she says people were just dropping. And when they were dropping, like you just have to stand there and you'll maybe see that horse stance I do. It's just to keep you warm. And what that is, it's, that's all that is. It's to keep you warm and then focusing on your breath as well. And she says, while people were dropping, people were literally passing out, you had to do that. And then everyone got to the top. And Karen said when she got to the top, she was 100%. She was cold, but she was 100%. And they said, okay, everyone get changed now. Karen opened her bag and realised the bag wasn't waterproof. It had been completely soaked through. And she said, like, her mind just went, like, she says she just panicked. Like, Karen is a tough cookie. Like, tough cookie. And I can imagine anybody in that position would just, like, your mind would just, it would just go. And she panicked. But the people around her, she said, were amazing. They took their clothes off and gloves and hats and they gave it to Carolyn. And she made it back down. She bossed the entire week. And when I seen her do that on her stories, I thought, you're one crazy bastard. But that's what I want to do next year. I want to take on something like that. I want to look back and be really proud of something that I've done. And that's why we booked it. So Wim Hof, the Iceman, he takes it. Who is the Iceman? Wim Hof is this seemingly crazy dude from the Netherlands, and he's rose to stardom from doing all these crazy challenges like climbing Everest in his bare feet. He's climbed Kilimanjaro in 2 days when it takes 7. He's sat in an ice bath for 2 hours, has the world record for that. And this guy's pretty insane. And when I say insane, like, he does remarkable things, and it really inspires me. And it showed me, alongside Wim Hof with David Goggins as well, like how much more we have in the tank, how much we're playing it safe. And Wim Hof's story, it's pretty remarkable. And I'll give you a bit of a background into his story and how he became who he is. So he's from the Netherlands. He had 4 kids. He was married, had a beautiful wife, but unfortunately she suffered from schizophrenia and severe depression. And very sadly, she one day went to the top 8 stories and she jumped. And he was left as a single parent with 4 kids. Devastated, of course. It completely, his world crumbled as anybody's would. And he was walking one day after along the park walk, and he'd seen this river, and it just spoke to him, and he'd said that something just gravitated him towards this river. He got in, and he said it was freezing, but for the first time in a long time, it took his mind away from the stress, away from the pain, away from the hurt of what happened with his wife. And he went back the day after, and he kept doing it and kept doing it, and he became obsessed with it, and it just became a way of life for him. And then he started taking on these crazy challenges to show people what they were truly capable of. And again, a big part of why Wim Hof rose to stardom is because he really bridged the gap between science and this hippie hoo-ha, breath work, ice baths. And he done a study. So there's been many studies conducted on him, but he put himself forward for a voluntary trial where they injected him with an endotoxin. And of course, like usually the body there'd be all sorts of inflammatory responses from this endotoxin. And Wim Hof done his breath work through that. And the response was remarkable. He was able to reduce that inflammation almost to zero, to the point where he was able to regulate his sympathetic nervous system and almost have no side effects from being injected with this endotoxin. And they thought, okay, that's fantastic. You're maybe a freak of nature, but can you do that with other people? So there was 12 subjects he taught them the Wim Hof method, i.e. the breathing, and the same response, the same result, which is incredible. And what they found was that if he was able to do this, if people were able to use this breath work to be able to regulate your autonomic nervous system, that you'd be able to fight off autoimmune diseases. And that's incredible. That's incredible. So that's a big part of why I started it, because I looked into it, the impact this had on chronic stress as well, as someone that was really stressed out at the time. And I do that every single day. It's Wim Hof breath work every single day, and it's like 30, 40 breaths in, and then it's all the way in, gentle exhales, called cyclic hyperventilation. And then at the end of it, you feel like you've popped a diazepam. So that's exactly why I'm doing it. But it's fantastic. But that's the expedition, and I'm going to document all of it, so don't worry, you're going to see it all. But I wanted to talk about why I'm actually doing it, and as I said, I wanted to challenge myself, and bringing it back to why I started it, and why I started posting on social media. I wanted people to experience what I was experiencing. I was experiencing relief from chronic stress. I was experiencing relief from anxiety. I was getting these mad highs every single day. I was getting bags of energy, bags of focus that I've never had before from anything natural. I wanted other people to experience it. So I just started posting on social media, talking about mindset, and I'll bring you back to the story of how I actually started posting mindset content, because I'm a personal trainer. I'm an online coach. Most online coaches beforehand would have I'm not saying that I'm the only person to ever do that, but I'm saying maybe last year, a couple of years ago, not as many people in Northern Ireland were doing it. Fitness, nutrition, that's all it was. And I felt like that was my lane that I had to stay in. And then I asked myself the question, okay, well, how do I get myself out there? How do I get more people to know me so I can put my message out there, which is to show people that they have so much more in the locker than they currently do have. And I had to do different. An early mentor once said to me, when they zig, you zag. When they do this, you do that. And there was a summit that I went to, the ECA summit in Belfast. It was a fitness summit, and there was a speaker there who, he loved the cold water, and I loved his content. He talked about it, and I took a lot of inspiration from him. His name is Jay Alderton. And after the talk, I made sure that during the talk, when he done a Q&A, I put my hand up and asked him questions. I was wearing a bright yellow shirt, so he could not miss me. I asked him 2 questions, so he knew who I was. He'd had contact with me, and this guy like 500k on Instagram at the time, and I was like, I want to know what he's doing. I want to get a piece of advice off him that's going to change the game, because we always look for that golden nugget. And I followed him into the toilets afterwards. Because I was like, I'm not missing my opportunity here. And I said, Jay, I'm sorry to bother you, mate, but I'm a personal trainer. I really want to grow my online presence so I can get my message out there to the world, to inspire people, and to, of course, help with what I'm doing in my own business as well. Work with like-minded people. And I said, it doesn't really light me up just talking about fitness and just talking about nutrition tips. That doesn't light me up, but I want to talk about mindset and my journey. And he said, okay, do that for 90 days, nothing else, and don't stop, no matter what happens. And he said, okay, golden. He says, make sure you're doing something that's different. I said, roger that. So the day after, I went and ordered a blue bin. I called the council up and I said, here, someone stole my black bin here. Any chance I can get one sent out? And they're like, yeah, it's 35 quid, but the blue ones are free. And I said, yeah, someone stole the blue one too. Send me one of them. And that was that. Filled it up with ice, filled it with water. I talked about how it helped my anxiety, and boom, that was it. The video got like 300-400k views, and I was like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. This is so different. And now the videos after that didn't do great, but that was the start of it. I knew I was like, I'm going to commit to this for 90 days. And that's how it really took off with the cold water. And what I would say, if you're wanting to do this, and this is a fantastic lesson for anything in life. Hold on, let's go espresso break. That shit's like, count to 5, okay? Because things are always worse in your imagination. The gym session that we don't want to do, it's always worse in our imagination. Getting into the cold water, it's always worse. Starting that essay, it's always worse in our head than actually doing it. The worst bit is getting there. So if we can trick our brains to showing up, it's going to make it so much easier to get those reps in and be consistent with it. So what I do when I get in that bed every morning, I do 11 minutes at the moment. I'm going to start building it up every week. But I tell myself, Daniel, just do 5 seconds. If you can do 5 seconds, then you can get out. You have full permission to get out. Now, once I get in and I've done 5 seconds, the hardest bit's over. So I stay. And that's the advice I would give to my clients, and the advice that I give to you as well. If you don't want to go and do a gym session, just go and do 2 sets. Just do 2 sets. And see if you want to leave after you've done 2 sets. You can. I give you full permission to do so. But you've now showed up and you've done the hardest bit, and the likelihood of you leaving after you've done 2 sets and got there so small. So if we can trick our brains into showing up time and time again, you'll be so much more successful at actually staying consistent with the things that you want to. And that's going to have a massive impact on your life. So I want you to ask yourself, how can I make things easier in my head? And bear in mind, when you get into this bin, when you do start doing the cold water, you'll look between your legs. See, if you're a man and you want humbled quickly, get into that ice bath for 3 minutes, get out and look between your legs. You will have a mangina, my man. Forget going and getting treatment. Forget any of that surgery. My man should have jumped 3 minutes into the ice bath and that would have saved him thousands. Swear down. But once I started posting the cold water content, it really took off. And I started seeing other people do it. I get all my clients doing it. And I started going to the sea and filming videos there. And that's how it really took off. Started talking about mindset and talking about my journey, because I feel it would be very selfish if I didn't do that. And to anyone listening that wants to post content, the way I frame it is it's very selfish if I don't do it. It's selfish if I don't put that out there. And that's another mindset frame that I use. If you want to be selfless, right? If you want to help the people around you, the most selfless thing you can do is to be selfish. Because see, when you fill your cup up and you help people from your overflow, everyone wins. See, if you just give, you're not going to be the best version of yourself. You're going to run down and you're no use to anybody then. So if you want to help other people, you have to help yourself first, because you're the best version of you and everybody wins. So make that time for you. If you can give 8 hours to somebody else during your hours of work, you can give 1 hour to yourself, and you owe that to yourself as well. And I put the onus on me to post those videos, that if I don't do it, other people suffer. So put the onus on you for other people, that if I don't do this gym session, it's not just me I'm impacting, it's my family, it's my friends, it's my colleagues. That's who I'm impacting, because again, there's nothing more powerful than external accountability. So lock that in. And then I started doing these sea dips. I was in my boxers, right? And people had this hoo-ha about me and my boxers, right? See if you go to a swimming pool. See if you go to the beach on holiday and people are in shorts. What are boxers? Shorts. I still, to this day, have not got around it. And so my social media, it was mad, because I posted maybe for 8 months. Nothing happened. And then maybe after 8 months, a couple of videos started popping. And I just doubled down. I didn't stop. I didn't miss one video for 8 months. And then it literally maybe grew 1,000. And then in 30 days, it went up 20,000. And in another 30 days, it went up 100,000. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And the impact we were having, it was mad. And it's something that I just never thought would have happened so soon. And people don't really talk about the impact that can have mentally on your brain. And people say, oh, well, it's a first world problem. Of course, but that level of stimulation, hundreds of years ago, kings and queens never would have experienced that level of stimulation that we do from our phones. And when that was coming through, my brain was like overdrive. It was wild. And especially with the amount of perverts in my DMs asking me for all sorts of mad stuff. But we'll get to that. So I had people from all over the world send me messages, and I genuinely couldn't believe it. Someone that I used to think I was such a loser. I used to think that I was just worthless, man. And that's me being completely honest. I didn't think anyone would ever be sending me messages saying thank you, saying I appreciate what you're doing, I appreciate your message. And I started to believe now that I am actually doing something which is helping people, as opposed to ripping other people down, which is what I used to do. So yeah, that was huge. But then also the perverts, and how I ended up on a gay porn website, that was an interesting one. So I was wearing boxers, right, when I was doing these sea dips. People had some sort of hoo-ha, as I said, about it, and then all of a sudden some guy DMs me one day. Here, mate, have you seen this website? Don't know how he found it in the first place, but he sends me this link. And I go on, and it is this forum of all these dudes being pervs. Right, I'll give you some of the stuff they were saying. So they were screenshotting my stuff, or screen recording it and putting it onto this website. And it was mad, some of the stuff they were saying. This guy's bulge gets bigger by the day. Loving these boxers today. Oh my God, when he wears the blue ones, I was like, what? I was sitting there baffled that people would be spending their day doing this. Then, like, even on my stories of me, like, in the shower, because I was doing a 100-day cold water challenge, and like, even they're like, oh my God, he's in the shower today. I was like, what is going on? Firstly, this dude, you have really threw yourself under the bus here. You have exposed yourself. You have given way too much away about who you are and your character and what you get up to in your spare time, mate. I was like, I would be doing that from a fake profile if I was letting somebody know he ended up on a gay porn website. So that was interesting to say the least. That's been that's been a ride. But I want to also talk you through some of, not the benefits from doing cold water, because I think everybody knows that. Why we do it, of course, it's for the mental side of things. It's, yes, of course, the discipline, the benefits you get from it. You feel electric, so there's a 250, when you get into cold water, it's a 250% increase in dopamine, which of course is going to improve your mood, your energy, your focus, and then a 500% increase in adrenaline. Now, the study that showed that was people getting into an ice bath at slightly warmer temperatures, still cold, but it was an hour's study, okay? So it wasn't like freezing cold. But that's the conclusions that were drew from that. Now, there hasn't been direct studies that have been done on, say, 3-minute ice baths at 5 degrees. But just to show you the impact that can have on you physiologically and, of course, physically too, it's crazy. So if you want to start doing them, studies show 11 minutes per week, okay? So if you're doing them a couple of times a week, that's gold. You don't need to do it every day, but 11 to 15 minutes per week, that's the sweet spot of where you're going to get the benefits from it, okay? And you want to be getting into a position where you're shivering, okay? That's where you want to get to. Once you're shivering, where you know it's uncomfortable, but you stay in, and then as soon as you start shivering, then you can get out. That's no problem. There's no benefit to doing it after 5 minutes. And people ask the question, oh my God, does it ruin your gains? Like, no, of course not. Now, in what way will actually impede your gains in the gym is if you do it directly afterwards, okay? So inflammation is a really important part of hypertrophy, which is building muscle. It's a really important part of that. When you get in the cold water directly after your gym session, that's going to reduce that inflammation, so that's therefore going to impede your ability to grow muscle. You're not going to get as much bang from your buck of that session. So studies show once you've done your session, 4 hours later, then you can do your cold water or do it before. So I think that's all you need. Like, I could dive so much further into the science of that, but there's no need. And all I do it for is the discipline. That's literally it. And it's having a really strong, deep why to do those things as well. It's a really strong, deep why to go to the gym. And my why, do you want me to be honest? Do you want me to get real here? My deep why is I never want to go back to who I was. I disliked that version of me so much that I never ever want to go back. And the thought of that terrifies me. And I see it like I'm building a house. I'm building this beautiful house in the countryside. It's got massive windows. It has a nice driveway. It's looking out over this cliff with the seafront in front of me. And every time that I get in that bin, it's one brick laid on the foundations of that house. Every time I go to a gym session, it's one brick that's been laid. And that's what I want you to think about, that those individual efforts, doing the Netflix, or going and doing your gym session when you want to chill, having an early night when you want Netflix, getting up early in the morning when you want to hit snooze, the healthy meal when you want fast food, those efforts are going to add up. And every effort, that's laying one brick down to that house. And your house is that identity that you want to become. So that's what I want you to think about. And if you're unclear of why you're doing what you're doing, write it down, man. Have a think about it. Why do I want to be more confident? Why do I want to get in this bin and challenge myself to become more resilient? Why do I need to be more resilient? And one thing that I done last year, which completely changed the game, was I wrote a list of 50 reasons why I do what I do. And these go deep, they go dark. And I understand that there is going to come a day where dark day is going to be presented in front of me. A dark day will be presented in front of me. And what I do now dictates and determines how I respond to that dark day. And if I give in to short-term gratification, if I give in to all of my desires and comforts, then I'm not going to be a strong, resilient individual. And when that dark day comes, I will crumble. And I don't want that. I don't want to be a feather in the wind. I don't want to wake up and hope that the day's going to go well. I don't want to wake up and hope that bad news doesn't come to my door, because we're human. This is part of life. The dark days make the good days great. But for those great days, the dark days just have to happen. And I don't want to crumble on them. And neither should you. And we're not gonna. We're going to make sure that we're stronger together this year. But it takes doing those difficult things. And anytime I question myself, anytime I really don't want to do something, I revert back to those 50 reasons why. I read through them, because you need a deep, overarching emotion than the one in that moment. People talk about motivation. People talk about how to get motivated. You need to have something so deep within you that is going to drive you to do it, no matter how you feel. And if that takes another layer of accountability, having it held by a friend or a family member, post it on social media, do it. Do whatever it takes. And whatever fuel you need to use, if it's fear, if it's revenge, use it. People think it always needs to be light energy. It always needs to be happy-go-lucky energy. You use whatever it is. See if you went through a breakup, use it. See if you've had a tough time at home, use it. And that's exactly what I done. I went through a breakup in 2020, and off the back of that, that was like the catalyst. I was in a relationship for 7 years, and I went through a tough time mentally. And after that, as soon as that breakup finished, that was the one time where I was like, right, Daniel, you're on your own. Sort your shit out. And it was like my back was against the wall, and I had to make something happen. I had to do something about it. I had to make something of myself. And that was the very first time where I realized, wow, you're really on your own here. Sort your shit out. That was the catalyst to me going to do my coaching course. That was the catalyst to me trying to level up my life, because I really realized, like, you're a loser, man. And it's okay if you genuinely are a loser, acknowledge it, because there's no point in us lying to ourselves. I was, and I acknowledged it, and I said, okay, I'm going to do something about it. The only issue I have with any of that is if we don't do anything about it. But use whatever fuel that you have. And for quite some time, you can use that dark energy, and I definitely did. But in time, that's going to change the light energy. And now I want to be a role model for young men and women. I want to be that role model that Daniel didn't have. And hopefully, in time, that's what I can be. But that's the light energy that I use, because I know that every time I do that, every time I get in that bin, every time I post a video, I know that that's going to help that 19-year-old Daniel. And that's what I do when I'm sitting thinking about video ideas. I sit and think about 19-year-old Daniel being beside me. What would I say to him? So this cold water, I know it gets a lot of hate on social media. I know people give it shit because it's not good. Like, it's too extreme. People say it's a load of jargon, like people getting up early and doing this. If something helps you, more power to you. This has been a massive part of my life. It's given me a new lease of life. It allows me to feel energized. It allows me to go and socialize with my friends and doing sober things, because I don't go out anymore. I don't really drink. I would go out every so often, but going for a seat-up, that's one of my favourite things to do. It's given me an outlet to socialise without drinking, and now I'm past that. Of course I can do that. I of course, like, I go to a coffee shop and I can socialise wherever now, but back in the day, that was my one outlet. So don't discredit it until you give it a go. Give it a go for 60, 90 days. And then come back to me. Because doing these hard things will change your life. If you feel you're giving into comfort right now, if you feel like life is really difficult, it's only going to get more difficult if you keep giving into those desires and comforts. And if you can add metal to the armor through voluntarily doing difficult things, you will suffer less involuntarily down the line. So that's something I want you to think about today. And a Wim Hof Expedition, it's going to be something. There's going to be people going to find themselves, and then we're going to be sitting there screaming, who's going to carry the boats and the logs? Needs more ice, Wim, needs more ice. Yeah, people are going to be sick of us. So it's myself, Tony, aka The Wolf, Helmy, Burke. There is Emmett McKenna, and then there's Ryan McDonald as well. So we're going to take it by storm. We're going to take souls. And I want this to break me. I want this to pull my trunks down and really reveal to me who I actually am, because we find out who we really are in those challenging moments. When you're doing that gym session, when you're hitting legs on that last rep, you find out who you are very quickly. You're a boy or you're a man, and you find that out very quickly. And that's great, because when we get broken down, we can build ourselves back up again. When we expose ourselves to weakness, we can become stronger. So what can you do in your life today that's going to add more metal to the armor? What can you do in your life today that you're going to look back and smile on in 50 years' time? What can you do in your life today that you're going to be able to look back at the end of 2024 and say, wow, I did that. Nobody else, I did that. So that you can be proud of yourself. So that when you set out on the 1st of January this year to change and be the best version of yourself, you've actually done it. And I back you. I'm with you. That journey could be lonely. That journey could be difficult. But your people are out there. And that's what we do within my coaching program as well. Like all of our guys and girls, they're from all over the world. And I wake up every morning, there's videos in of our guys and girls smashing ice baths. There's one of my guys out in Norway. It's like minus 20. Ridiculous. But it's a like-minded community of individuals. And that's what I want to create on social media as well. So that you don't feel alone in that journey. So that you can join me. You don't have to go to Wim Hof Expedition. You can let me carry the boats. No, you carry them too. I'm only joking. But you're not alone in that. And I think we will finish it there. So thank you. 7 days with the Iceman is inbound. Episode 2 has gone down the hatch. And we're going to start getting some guests on in the coming weeks, and I'm very excited for it. This is all about reps. I'm just putting reps in, and again, things will get... The podcast is only going to get better. After the 100th rep, after the 500th rep, I'm going to do this till the grave, baby. Bury me with this Shure microphone and a Let's Go Espresso at Ballygally. Enjoy your day. Big, big love. You're the GOAT.